The Edgeless Swordsman here, March 9, 2021, 2022. Kind of poor day in the gold space, but I mean, who cares? Gold is close to $2,000 per ounce, and gold units should already be up some 100, 200% higher than where they are. So it's like, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's a, on the buy button chronically basically. As soon as I have dry powder, I'm deploying it because I can't believe how cheap this sector still is. Not even not even gold surpassing 2000, not even Newmont hitting new all-time highs wasn't enough to actually get any new buyers into this sector. So there's no money out there really keeping the valuations fair. But at the same time, I think we have pretty much run out of most sellers as well. So I'm expecting volatility, and if not if, when people actually enter this sector again, the junior space in particular, I don't think there will be too much resistance to the upside, because I mean, if most of the people are like me that's left in this sector, I mean they won't be selling their shares anywhere near these levels, I think. I mean, I've been a net buyer forever, it feels like, and I'm not parting with those shares. So I'm just soaking up more and more of the outstanding shares in the companies I like, and I think I'm not alone in this. But anyway, so let's look at some news items recently. Newfound Gold came out with a more high-grade intercepts from their Queensway project. Uh, I haven't checked the reaction lately, but I think it's subdued, poor market day, etc. And these weren't total barn burner holes which you would see out of the Keats zone, for example. So this is actually from the JBP fault zone, 10 kilometers away from the Keats, Golden Joint, and Lotto discoveries. So that's first things first. The They drilled 51 holes, so I mean that's a lot of drilling, obviously. But you can see, I mean, uh, some of these holes, I mean, few juniors ever see grades like this. Thickness 55 to 65%. So I mean, true width gram meter wise is lower than the gross interval here, obviously. But it's like this is still early stage at Pocket Pond and 7044. And I mean the takeaway for me is that this just highlights the obscene potential in this overall land package. And this is just the Queensway North area. You can see it down here. I mean, their total land package is like multiples of what you see here, and they already have two 10-kilometer trends. And I mean Keats, etc., makes up just a small part of this. So I mean, in terms of probable growth, given they have 4 drill rigs active right now, I mean I don't know if there's a gold junior that comes even close really. They're basically brute forcing this. And of course, I mean it's quite costly, and they do a lot of drilling. But again, it's like at face value with gold at $2,000, and this being one of the absolutely best jurisdictions in the world, high grade. So I mean the rise in oil and gas, etc. I mean it's obviously it should impact a low tonnage operation much more than if you had zero point 0.5 grams per ton open pit. Deposit. So it's like it has everything really going for it, and Newfoundland as a jurisdiction is obviously pretty great. They want to have more mines, so you don't really have that you know the same ESG hurdle that most jurisdictions have today, at least in the Western world. and that obviously increases the implied value of any ounce they can drill up. So I think this is just the beginning over in this area, and they might one day hit the burrito, as Quinton calls it, where the zone blows out, etc. Because this is still a postage stamp which they talk about that they've tested yet. And again, it's like, I mean, they have a hotspot after hotspot popping up where there's confirmed high grade gold. So I mean, there's a lot of, well, first of all, it was the Nagri gold scare, let's say, and that appears to be behind us, because they're after researching it, there was a news release that said basically they couldn't find any bias, really. So okay, if that's probably behind us, but that obviously spooks the market, and people in a risk-off market, risk gets heavily discounted. So the share price has taken a beating, I think, because again, it's like after a 2-year downtrend in the junior sector, people are thinking more about, they're more afraid of losing more money than actually, how much they can make, let's say. So it's just what typically happens during sentiment lows. You have, upside doesn't really get discounted, and the risks often gets overly discounted. That's why they are so incredibly cheap, and they can stay cheap until the sentiment changes, because that's when investors are comfortable actually paying for anything. But now out there, I mean, there's a bunch of companies that are selling for such ridiculous levels that I can't almost believe it. But and people still talk about the risks. It's like, when the risks are priced in, you should start thinking about what's not priced into the upside. But anyway, this is not at face value the cheapest company out there. But again, it's like, what's the trend been? The trend has been that the more they drill, the more high grade hits they produce. And I mean, this whole journey, let's say, started with a discovery hole at Keats. I think it's this one, 90 meters of 92, and you can see, I mean, how much they're drilling right now. Then there's Keats North, Golden Joint, Dome, Lada. So it's like it has the story just keeps on expanding, and now obviously the latest news release was new zones. I mean, narrow intercepts, not bonanza. Well, bonanza, but not like Keats type intercepts, not like Lotto type intercepts. I mean, here you have 11 meters of 150 grams per ton, 5 meters at Golden Joint. So these seem to be kind of special so far. I mean, it doesn't mean maybe they found the burrito and it's approximately at the same level, let's say, and they have just yet to find that over at 7044 and Pocket Pond, for example, along the JBP fault zone. So it's like I'm expecting upside surprises continuously, and there was a news release quite recently. Maybe I should actually looked it up here. Yeah, I mean, before this news release, 47, almost 48 grams per ton over 9.75 meters at Keats Main extends high grade zone to surface with interval of 55.6. I mean, those are bonanza, obscene results, obviously. And here you can see, I mean, they're getting bonanza holes down here, 88 meters 3.3 or 88 grams 3.3 meters, and they're getting bonanza all the way up here as well, and the lowermost one 28. So I mean it's not a complete game changer, but it's like the implied value of getting a hole like this down here and getting holes like this up here. I mean, it's just and they've hit in footwall zones, etc., which has been released recently. Uh, I mean, this story has continually put on additional dimensions, additional avenues for upside. But I think it kind of goes over people's heads. I mean, it's. I mean, it is hard to wrap one's head around it because they're drilling so much and there's a bunch of zones and it's complex geology, etc. But I mean, the signal is there's a bunch of noise, the nuggety stuff, that it's narrow veins, etc. But it's like these results are still real, and there's plenty of narrow um, vein deposits out there that's being mined. I mean, Coster Field down in Australia. I mean, that's those some of those veins are down to like 7 centimeters. I mean, there's probably a different context, etc. But it's like to just write off everything simply because you have a, let's say, a bias that no, this is you missed the boat, and it's nuggety, it's narrow, etc. I mean, okay, well, you can keep a blind eye to them hitting new zones, extending, etc. I'm just looking at the signal is that this just seems to be growing and growing and growing, and if you look at the share price, it's basically consolidating by the looks of it. And here it seems that this is some kind of floor. And I mean, last time we had a consolidation kind of like this, then it started to ramp up. So I mean, in my opinion, I think the value creation trend has been something like this, let's say, that it gets overextended, yes, and then the news has to it has to backfill on some news, and it has, and then we had hit a sentiment peak in the miners, and we've been in an 18-month downtrend in juniors overall. On top of that, we had the nuggety scare, etc., etc. But they just keep drilling with the 14 drill rigs, and why would you just keep expanding the rig count? Obviously, because you're getting more and more bullish. It's not like the insiders just like to burn cash. So obviously we're it's getting pretty tight here. My guess would obviously be up because I think that the prices actually undershot the implied value of the Queensway project by now, and I expect more good drill results going forward. Again, it's like I don't think you should need to be a brain surgeon and need precision. I just think that the trend is up. They're finding more gold. They'll continue to find more gold, and a high-grade project like this is like few and far between. Then we have Eloro put out news release on March 1. This was a complete game changer. I've talked about this before, at least in my book. And I really couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the stock open up 2.3%. I mean, that's how do you explain that? I don't know. I mean, I was already fat into Eloro, so it's not like I had a lot of dry powder to push it up, but I had to sell some other positions because this was just too good to be true. They drilled the best hole they've ever drilled smack into this anomaly, which the theory was that this is a proxy for mineralization. It's pyrrhotite that's creating this mag anomaly, and the pyrrhotite seems to coincide with mineralization. And they had a hole over here somewhere. I think it was this hole, or maybe it was this. Anyway, some hole over here clipped this anomaly, and lo and behold, that's where the best mineralization was. And then we have the DSBU 03 hole, which basically hit a substantial part of this anomaly. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, if this is actually the part that's cutting through it, or if it actually continues into it here. But I'm open to the possibility of, let's say, this actually not being, I mean, that the hole actually didn't go through everything, and this part is actually what went through the actual anomaly, and still it produced the best hole we've yet to see. Very tin rich, and that's, I think, what's confusing people. And people think, well, I mean it for the silver, or well, probably that. I mean for the silver, but I mean, if you have an anomaly this big, and you can do some numbers on this. I mean, you have the scale bar here, 500. I mean, this is easily over 1 kilometer, let's say, and this looks to easily be 1 kilometer long. Height 500 at least. I mean, it's not totally homogeneous. It looks like it's forming kind of a triangle, but at the same time it's open. But if we just assume, take 1,000 in width, height 500, strike 1,000, 1 kilometer. That's 1.35 billion tons. And again, it's like, even though it might be hard to read, I think this is over 2 grams per ton AU equivalent. Imagine if a gold junior with a, let's say, billion-ton anomaly puts a hole into it and comes out with 373 meters of 2 grams per ton. That junior would probably be trading at, I don't know, in a good market, that would probably go up to 500 million plus easily on one hole. I think so, at least. I mean, just thinking of how Jerry Baldy, etc. moved. Well, Eloro already had the Santa Barbara discovery, which I expect to be like some 400 million ounces of AG equivalent. So you start off with, in my opinion, somewhere along 400 million ounces of AG at good grades, at shallow levels, and we will have to see what the recoveries are. I mean, I think there's going to be a relatively large recovery cut, but I still think the grades might be probably good enough that it it's could be worth $1 billion plus in that case still. But again, it's like, I actually think this dwarfs the Santa Barbara starter resource, or starter zone, let's say, because this anomaly produced the best hole yet, and it's huge. And again, if you calculate that into, if you just go by all that we know right now, one hole with mineralized through its the entire intercept, let's say, so that's obviously looks pretty goddamn good, that it's not just 1 meter of 1,000 gram per ton AU equivalent. If you take an approximate tonnage of this target here, and we just say it's the dimensions I just mentioned, and you have let's say 2 grams per ton AU equivalent grade, that's an 86.8 million ounce AU equivalent target. That really puts it into perspective, because I think most people like myself start off by, okay, we see a good intercept and it's like, okay, AG equivalent, there's 12 grams per ton AG, and there's a lot of tin, and because I'm not a tin guy, it's hard to appreciate just how valuable that intercept is, and by extension how valuable this anomaly could be, because tin, if you have been paying attention, is in severe supply deficit, and it's been making all-time highs for the last several months. Basically, it's just been on an absolute tear. So tin has never been more valuable, and they put one of the best tin intercepts I think any junior has put out in a long time, in one of the biggest anomalies I've seen. So it's like, it truly blows my mind, because the tin portion alone, I mean, we can talk about recoveries when you have, a polymetallic deposit, but the tin grades alone, at this tin price, makes this a, multi-billion dollar target. I mean, the tin alone could be worth in situ $100 billion, I think. I did a crude calculation. You should do your calculations yourselves, because then I think, starts to sink in. But if we, let's say, just, cut down a bit and just say, okay, given that it's open, etc., but let's cut it to 1 billion tons. That would be 64 million ounces AU equivalent at 2 grams per ton. That's gross, excluding, recovery loss. But I mean, how often do you see targets that big? I mean, a 10 million ounce gold deposit is like, few and far between. And at these, gross grades, yeah, I don't know what the market is really thinking. I think it's a combination of extremely poor sentiment in juniors, and nobody has any clue about tin really. Because this is probably, I think, going to be a incredibly strategic asset for someone, because obviously the world is in great need of more tin. And if this is one of the biggest tin discoveries in the last decades, I mean, this is going to be worth billions of dollars. And I think the whole, Eloro has 9 other projects in Bolivia, has the Virginia project in Peru, has the Santa Barbara zone already pretty much drilled out, and now this is opening up with this is basically the Porco target. So you get everything for like 330 million Canadian. That's just mind-blowing. I mean, people can talk about recovery, recovery risk or Bolivia. It's like this is no business being down here. I mean, if you discount a target like this and gives it a, discounts it and just gives it a $50 million valuation, that's just absurd in my opinion. But I have, I've been loading up. I mean, I think anything below $10 for Eloro is like, one of the best risk rewards I've ever seen, I think. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a guaranteed multi-bagger. I'm just saying that this is probably one of the stocks I would be least surprised to have a multi-bagger in. In the short, I mean, again, I think there's a few things going on here. First of all, this is like a monthly short. I don't even exactly know if Eloro was, the Eloro back then, but obviously it kind of reached this level, resistance level seen here. One could say that it goes all the way back here. Okay, so it's like a technical pause. Trades down during the almost 2 year sentiment downtrend in the juniors. Okay, that was bullshit to begin with, and then they make the discovery. And again, it's like this ramped like this because of this Iska Santa Barbara discovery. I mean, this is possibly an even bigger discovery. So I think it should be way up already. But like you can see, I mean, I think when this breaks here, and I think this is a flag, and mean target is $7.5, but one could possibly call this a, I don't know, cup and handle or a reverse head and shoulder. So I think this is a technical pause, has nothing to do with fundamentals, and I think some people are watching this hoping for a private placement, because there's no way any large entity can get size in the open market. So if you're sitting there watching this, okay, see tin price at all-time high, you see Eloro make this discovery hole, and you're sitting there like, god damn, that's gonna be worth billions. There's no way I can buy a sizable position in the market. What would you do? Obviously, I personally, I would be prepared to sacrifice quite a bit by just trying to, let's say, short it, and hope that the company would do a private placement as low as possible. Because I mean, if you have to buy in the open market, you're gonna make the short go like this. and obviously you would want to get a sizable position as low as possible. So I think this is an absolutely no-brainer gift at these levels. And again, it's like, consider me biased. They're a sponsor. I have a sizable position. Pretty much every family member has a position. Quite a few friends as well. I like it that much. Then we have today's news from Timberline. Absolute monster hole. This is like, when I think about being a part of a big Carlin discovery, let's say, I mean, these thick high grade intercepts is pretty much what I visualize, let's say. And I've talked about this before, that the previous news release highlighted the fact that the first core hole they put out was the first core hole in the water well zone. I think it was 22. Yeah, up here. Okay, all the way up here. They twinned an RC hole which showed 36.6 meters of 1 gram per ton. Then they put a hole right next to it, and the grade was 5.8 times better at 6 gram, and that's still open, and we are awaiting assays. So I expect this hole to get better than 22.9 meters of 6.11. When I first saw the headline, I actually thought that it was this hole that was reported, but it wasn't. It was actually a new core hole, and that's all the way down here. So now we have 500 meter strike of a total whopper of a drill hole up here in the water well zone, as well as 500 meters to the south. That's obviously really good, because okay, now we know you can get these kind of results up here and all the way down here. So if we play around with a bit with the numbers, let's just take 400, 500. 500 meter strike and the 200 meter width, let's say. This is just for the water well zone. This is just for this basically, this jagged line area. 18.18 meters thick, because that's what they mentioned in the news release, and they have a average grade so far at like 3.12, but I'm upping that to 5 grams per ton, because again, the core holes in this one and the other one was 6 or 5 to 6 grams. So I'm just putting 5 grams per ton, because I don't trust any of the RC holes anymore from this project, given what we're seeing right now. So that's like 816,000 ounces. I'm thinking that's the potential just here. And then you have the resource already drilled up. But as far as I understand it, the absolute majority, vast majority of drill holes at the whole Eureka project has been RC drilling. So I don't trust any of these grades anymore. I think everything here is basically, not everything, but majority of drill holes here are probably understating the grade a bit. I mean, if the water well zone is a good judgment, let's say, it's extremely understating the grade. So who knows? I mean, if you take the measured indicated inferred resource, which is only grading 0.41 to 0.62 grams per ton for this red here, if you just up that to 0.85, that jumps from 650,000 ounces to 1.1 million, and then you add like the water well zone, just the zone you see here, then we would be close to 2 million ounces already, just in this picture here. So what I like about this news release, and I'm just gonna try to find, there was some. They mention, let's see here. Here, no, that wasn't it. They mentioned, where is it? here, I like this part. The strong results from blah yada yada further reinforces the benefits of the core. The results reported here from BHSE 209, that's a core RC hole, are moderately encouraging, but the average grade of these intervals is lower than the reported from the original VVC discovery holes, approximately 50 meters to the west. In fact, the mineral zone is much broader than implied by the table above. Applying this is a substantial zone of value gold based on yeah. So basically, this hole here again came in lower grade than some other holes in the near vicinity, historic. And not everything reached the cutoff grade. So it basically, my take is that visually, this appears to be, because they only report where they have the intervals with significant mineralization. But again, then the problem is if the RC hole is vastly perhaps understating the grade, that means there might be some intervals that are actually have grades or potentially even good grades, but since the RC drilling loses so much gold, they don't get counted as significant intervals. So I think, again, I think this is a complete game changer for Timberline and for the project, and I would consider it to be a 4D news release, let's say, because in my opinion it not only paints a really nice picture of what kind of grades and thicknesses we could be seeing out of the water well zone on in the future, but it also suggests that what's already been confirmed, or all the known gold, or a lot of the known gold, is also understated. So this hikes up in this revelation, which we can't 100% confirm yet, but it's like these two news releases point to the same thing, and the comments about the RC hole probably understating the thickness of the zone, etc. This points to the grades and the quality of these projects has been understated. And if the majority of holes that drilled up this known gold here understates the grade, that means they have already drilled up something that is more valuable than they knew beforehand. So I think this, again, revelation on a risk-adjusted basis, it hikes up the implied value of all this immediately, hikes up the implied value of the entire district, hikes up the value of the water well zone, and where's the and they're also, by the way, they're drilling Oswego right now, where we had those here's the Oswego trend where we had those super, okay, I think it's in the, here's the Oswego channel samples. 25.9 meters, 14 grams, 27.4 meters of 12 grams. And I think they're mostly, maybe exclusively even, doing core holes here. So it's like, yeah, watch out. I think it's going to cost more, but if it's probably worth it because if you do cheaper RC drilling, and you might be understating the grade by up to 5.8 times, that's probably not worth it, actually. So yeah, I think this Timberline now has a really good shot of becoming a multi-million ounce story in the heart of Nevada, basically, and they haven't even touched the IP anomaly yet, and the district itself is, I hope I have the, yeah, this is the soil geochem. So they've just been drilling here. This is what I think, this is the resource which I think went up in value, and this is basically the water well zone. and you have Oswego trend here. So I mean, look at all this, and again, I think actually the windfall trend, which has also seen. Is this no? That's the Oswego trend. The windfall trend here. I mean, look at. I mean, it doesn't say C for core, so let's just assume that these are all also RC holes. So maybe this is actually 24 meters of 6 grams per ton. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, you know, this opens up basically, because if this RC drilling problem is not exclusive to the water well zone, that means that every RC hole here that's been done on the property, which I think is the majority, has every single one might have understated the grade, not potentially, you know, by a significant amount in every case, but it's like if there's a possibility that might be up to 5.8 times. I mean, even this one, if you hike up the grade, I mean, that's good near surface material. So it's like we have yet to see, but the main point is that this kind of revelation that's only upside. Because obviously, if you're drilling with a poor recovery technique, which typically, let's say, has a risk of understating the grade, that means it could only get better. So that's like, you know, one of the absolute best kind of news releases you can really get, that hikes up the implied value of what's already been done, hikes up the potential of the future, and also doesn't add anything to the downside. So that's just a net win-win-win kind of news release. So this is material stuff. I think the case changed a lot, and this today's news release just basically suggests that yes, this might really be understating the grade over here. So the trend is up for Timberline. The fundamental trend has, you know, that jumped a lot on this the first twin hole in last news release, and jumped further by the risking and the fact that, okay, you have a high grade hit, a super hole all the way down here as well as up here. So okay, then this opens up the potential in between, and that basically just, you know, reinforces the idea that the RC drilling understated the grade. And if we look at, I mean, yeah, the short, that's like one of the most obvious reverse head and shoulders patterns I've ever seen, I think. So if we, let's say we play with the thought that, okay, actually, okay, the price has jumped here, but actually it's like, okay, the actual value has jumped here, and the trend has gone from this to this, let's say. I mean, do I think this is going to break this neckline? Yes, I think so. And since, I mean, I'm not a trader, I don't buy on technical patterns, but it's like, okay, if I think the fundamental trend has, you know, gotten steeper and the value jumped a lot, then it will probably break this, and then the traders come in. I'm just front running that. Okay, Mantaro put out a news release. Extends mineralized vein structure over 2 kilometers in Golden Hill property. I mean, I don't think you need much due diligence on this one. I think the market cap is like 10 million. They have 5 million in cash. So this project plus the 5 projects in Peru, including Santas Glorias, you can buy for 5 million. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, look at all these veins, and this is like a, you know, fully it's permitted for mining basically, and they're already down in the mineralization, and they you know, they're finding visible gold. I mean, this is like a 6 kilometers of lode gold quartz veins here, and they could be, you know, from a mining standpoint, could pretty much be mining tomorrow, and they're already down into the veins. They have all the adits down, and I think they have access to like 4 veins or something. I mean, this is just, I mean, if this becomes as good as it looks like, I mean, this can actually be a, I don't know, 10-20 bagger, let's say. But I think there's been I think there's someone who's been shorting this stock and probably had shares at the 12.5 cent level, who basically I think is kind of shorting it risk free, and I would be surprised if he or she is pretty much not the only seller right now, because I can't see how anyone in the world could make a case that Mantaro is a sell down here. I mean, it might be the cheapest stock I've ever seen. So in that case, it's like, okay, if you have someone that's basically, in his, her opinion, doing some risk-free flipping, and okay, he or she can sell down to 12.5 and say, well, I made a profit. Okay, but if you're selling for like from here, it's like, what is it, maybe a 30% return potential until you break even, and you're giving away like 200-300% in expected upside, then it's like, go ahead, sell all you want, because I'm playing the longer game, and I'm not a short-term flipper who wants to lock in 30% gains. I'm looking for a 10-bagger. Anyway, that's what I think might be happening, because otherwise I cannot for the life of me see how this and all of this gets sold for 5 million. It's like the most ridiculous thing in a hot market. If you would spin out everything, like Golden Hill alone could probably fetch 20-30 million valuation. Same with Santa's Gloria, and again, the market cap for the entire company right now is 10 million. So it's like, I won't be shocked if I get more than a solid multi-bagger in Mantaro just for sitting put. And I'm expecting drill start one of these days at Golden Hill, and again, they see the veins and they've been sampling the veins, so I expect a lot of news out of this. And when this motivated seller is gone, I don't think there's many people that are going to be selling, but I think with the news flow, there's going to be people that notices Mantaro for the first time. So I think it's going to flip from one motivated seller to motivated buyers with no sellers, and I think this could go up in a hurry when said motivated seller is gone. That's my 2 cents. I bought quite a bit of. I bought as much as I could basically when it went sub 16 cents, and now I own a pretty big position. And I hope to at least ride most of it for like 100-200% returns from here. It's like kind of like Eloro. It's when I don't know what to buy on any given day. If I have dry powder, I just end up buying Mantaro or Eloro, because they're so absurdly cheap that it's just unreal. It's like you need to spend 5 minutes of due diligence or less to realize that, I think. A long rant. Thanks for listening, and keep in mind that I'm biased because I own shares of all these companies mentioned. And there's no guarantees of success or rewards, and there are risks, and there's sponsors. So again, do your own due diligence, think through the cases for yourself, and make up your own mind. Thanks for listening.